course, we see a lot of people jumping into the teaching profession because they think it's easy. And a lot of them, just do it just because until they find another career path. Do you have any advice for anybody who's teaching right now, or who's trying to think whether teaching is for them?
Practice, practice, practice. All right. When I started teaching, I was a student teacher at Garner-Patterson Junior High School, which is at 10th and U Streets Northwest. The way you felt about going to Cardozo, because you were coming out of a private school and you thought it was like filled with gangsters and shootings and stabbings and fights and all that stuff. And that's not Cardozo at all. Yeah. All right. Garner-Patterson was at 10th and U Streets Northwest. All right. 4 blocks from the riots. And I got there in 1970. The riots were in 68. All right. And I was teaching old 9th graders. I was teaching 9th graders who were 16 and 17 years old. They had not passed and were taking it again, and whatever. And here I was, this young white guy, coming in and teaching, not much older than they were, maybe 6 or 7 years older than they were. But I was coaching, and I had a wonderful mentor teacher, Britannia Capers. He was my cooperating teacher, and everything I tried worked. And that was when I was a student teacher. All right. So then I was hired at Garner-Patterson by the principal, Dr. Margaret Labatt, greatest principal in the history of DCPS as far as I'm concerned. And I started teaching like 3 weeks after I graduated from college. And I graduated, after I stopped going to classes. And so each teacher, they gave me I had 5 classes. And each teacher gave up a class. Well, the first thing you have to understand is, what class do I give up if I have to give up a class? Okay. Am I giving up my AP literature? No.
No.
So each teacher gave me the class that they wanted to give up. And I was very successful as a teacher in relationships with the students. But when I was at the end of the semester, as I looked at myself as a teacher, I was a total failure. As I had good relationships with the students and everything, that part of it, but I didn't feel as though I had taught them anything because I didn't know what I was doing. The main thing that I work with on the State Board of Education is teacher retention. Okay. DC Public Schools lost 25% of their teaching force last year. At the beginning of this year, there were 25% of the teachers didn't come back. All right. For all kinds of reasons. And so my advice to a young teacher is find a mentor and ask those questions that sign says. If you don't understand something, ask the question. Because if, like in my class, I'll ask my class, they're not, if I ask a class that you were in, you'd have your hand up right away. But a lot of students won't ask the question, and they don't know what's going on with the assignment. They don't understand what we're doing, kind of thing. You've got to ask questions. And new teachers have to do that. They have to form alliances with older teachers. And they have to also understand, I think it took me about 5 years. You got me at a good time in my teaching life because I knew what I was doing. All right. But it takes about 5 years to understand what you're doing. All right. You've got to come in with all this enthusiasm about probably not out of education classes in college. I didn't learn anything from an education class at college. It didn't prepare. Most of the teachers come, and they come from these schools that had, minority Black students, and they go into a classroom with that's fit like Cardozo, 50% Latino and 50% African American. And even if they're the same race as those people, they don't understand the economic problems that what students bring to classrooms. Because that's what teaching's about. I think the greatest. I don't watch TV since my wife passed. The only thing I watch is sports, except for one show. You know what that show is? Abbott Elementary. Have you heard
Oh,
about that show?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, Catherine, run, don't walk.
Run the walk. Okay.
Yep, and watch it in sequence. Watch the first season before you. It's the second season now.
Okay.
I'll watch it a couple of days after it comes on. But it's like education in inner city, especially inner city education in a microcosm. And it's only a half an hour show,
Okay.
and that's with commercials. So it's about 20 minutes of text of the actual show itself, but it's so spot on about every problem that we have and I'll talk about it offline with you about that.
Okay.
But that's it. You gotta realize that and if you're in the job just to get it on your resume, then get out of it. That's my advice. UDC has an education department preparing teachers they have a free for DC residents. You can apply for the master's program, 1 year master's program paid for
Wow.
in education. And it's available right now on your website at UDC. So that would be the first thing I would mention to any new teachers is use UDC.